Hey everyone, it's Oscar time, and that means it's time to rank the Best Picture nominees. I've seen all 10 nominees, and I'm going to rank them from my least favorite to the best. And this is all my opinion. We're going to disagree, and that's fine, except for maybe last place. A lot of people, I think, are going to agree with that one. But regardless of that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what your ranking is down in the comments below. And if you haven't seen all of these nominees and you want to evade spoilers, I might get into some spoilery topics. We'll see. But if you do see a film that you haven't seen yet, then just be wary. There could be spoilers. So with that, let's get into the ranking.
Man to woman.
From penis to vagina.
Surprise, it's the movie that everyone else has at the bottom of their list. Emilia Perez is not a movie that I immediately went in wanting to hate. I saw one clip of the film.
From penis to vagina.
Yes, that one. And then I watched it to see what all the fuss was about. This movie has an interesting story, but what the fuck? The execution is terrible. The representation of Mexico and the representation of transgender people was so mishandled that those retrospective groups actively show a huge amount of disdain and hatred for this film. Carlos Sevilla Gascon's nomination is historic for the Oscars, but it's a shame that she's a fucking nutcase. As for Zoe Saldana, she's easily the best part of the film, but she does not deserve the win. I think that Ariana Grande, Felicity Jones, and Monica Barbaro gave far better performances. As for the songs they make, Joker Folie à Deux look like a fucking masterpiece of a musical, and none of them deserve to be nominated. It's just a complete mess of a movie. It's insulting, it's degrading, it's sloppy, and the director is an asshat that not only believes Mexico has no talent, but also believes people that dislike the film are watching it the wrong way. Oh, I'm sorry, I suppose if I cover my eyes and put the film on mute, I'll appreciate it a lot more. This might be an unpopular opinion, but I don't think Conclave belongs in this category. The cinematography, score, and the actor nominee for Ralph Fiennes is deserved. Sorry to Isabella Rossellini, but she has one scene in the film that gave her a nomination, and it should have been Margaret Qualley or Anjanou Ellis-Taylor. Honestly, Conclave is not really the movie for me. I don't have strong feelings about any parts of the story. There's great star power in there with John Lithgow, obviously Ralph Fiennes, Stanley Tucci, but that's really the only thing I took away from it. It moves too slow for me. I wasn't all that captivated by it, and it's nothing against the movie. Like I said, the filmmaking qualities of it are great. It just isn't my thing, so I don't have too much more to say about it. That's why it's so low on the list.
Long time, long time, long time.
Another unpopular opinion, maybe, I didn't completely like Nickel Boys. I didn't hate it or anything, but I was ultimately alienated by the story thanks to the choice of making this a story told through the character's POV. This is an incredibly bleak movie about this young boy who has so much potential, and he's got such great plans for himself, and he's ultimately robbed of that. Its POV style makes it almost hard to watch because you just feel such dread and hopelessness. Now, maybe that's the strength of it for some, but there are moments where I did have hope for the characters, but it was just drastically outweighed by just the amount of tragedy that was unfolding during it, so it made it a bit of an uncomfortable watch. Now, like I said, that could be a positive to some, like that's the point, but look, I want to see the actors bounce off of each other and have that chemistry, and when you're doing it in the POV style, it causes a bit of a disconnect for me. I felt for what these boys were going through, but I couldn't go deeper and really have some emotion for the characters themselves because of that lack of connection that I was feeling from not seeing both the characters feel during these moments together. So it's not a bad movie whatsoever. It's got great performances, but it ultimately lost me in its execution. I really didn't know what to expect going into this movie, but I knew you folks in Brazil absolutely loved it, so I was intrigued to check this out nonetheless. I want to start off by saying that Fernanda Torres absolutely crushes it in this film. She gives such a powerful and moving performance. This is a movie that, for the first 20 minutes, builds the foundations of this really loving, strongly bonded family. And then ultimately you watch as it comes crashing down in this one moment where the father is taken and never seen again. I literally felt my heart drop to my stomach the second that happened, and it kept that feeling throughout the rest of the runtime. It's a very bleak film, but it has a bit more hopefulness to it than something like Nickel Boys, where in this movie it's all about this family trying to hold on to their memories. They reminisce the time that they had with their father through photos and videos and telling stories. That's a really beautiful message to put in this movie, especially when it's dealing with such a gut-wrenching premise and the way it connects to real life, and how there are still things that haven't been resolved from this to this day. It's just such a brutal film. It could have been cut down a little, but I was still engaged throughout, and a large part of that is because of Fernando Torres' excellent performance. The Brutalist is a 3-hour and 21-minute long film. Holy shit. This movie is so long that it has an intermission. So naturally, a movie this long could not possibly have kept me entertained the whole way through. Yeah, no, I was completely captivated by this one. Adrien Brody gives a Best Actor-worthy performance, and pretty much every other quality of this movie matches up with that Oscar-worthy stature. Guy Pearce and Felicity Jones are fantastic. The cinematography is breathtaking. The score is probably the best score of the year. And Brady Corbet does an outstanding job directing this beast of a movie. It starts off with this excitement that our lead Laszlo has for finally arriving in America, and we see him aspiring to make it big and live the American dream. Then throughout the film, you just have that crushing reality of it, where Guy Pearce's character, Harrison, doesn't see Laszlo as an equal. He constantly condescends him and clashes with him and even violates him as the movie goes on. It's quite shocking. Laszlo just becomes more corrupt and unhinged as he's fighting against the system and against these people that hold such power over him. And he wants that power, but constantly gets pushed aside by the higher-ups, and the whole thing is anchored by Brody's heart-wrenching performance. So it's an excellent one to watch. Just make sure you have enough time.
They should just let me be.
Let you be what?
Whatever it is they don't want me to be.
I went into a complete unknown without any knowledge of Bob Dylan whatsoever. I knew a couple of his songs, but that was really it. After watching this movie, I still know jack shit about him, and that's actually my favorite aspect of this movie. Bob Dylan was one of the most unique figures of his time, and he's also had, like, just such an individualist mindset to him that for us to not learn anything about his past in this movie kind of makes him much cooler in retrospect to me. Timothy Chalamet just disappears into this movie and becomes the mysterious and quirky Bob Dylan. He's assisted by a nice handful of performances from Monica Barbaro, Elle Fanning, and Edward Norton, and even Boyd Holbrook in there as Johnny Cash. James Mangold hasn't always worked for me. I'm looking at you, Dial of Destiny, but hey, I loved Ford v Ferrari, and he does a great job with this one. Denis Villeneuve should have been in this spot, realistically, but I'll save that talk for when we get to Dune. The choice for everyone to perform the songs on the actual set instead of just recording them in a studio worked in its favor tremendously. It really puts you in a time and a place, it immerses you in that world, and it's interesting in the way that he both offered so much to folk music lovers, but also took away from them, as he just made such a drastic change to the way that the genre was viewed at that time. And it's got pacing issues here and there, but overall, it's just a very different kind of biopic that I can appreciate, and it's a very much a show more, tell less kind of experience.
Alphaba, Glinda, Alphaba, Glinda.
I was not excited for Wicked, purely because I had never seen the Broadway show, and I just didn't know how well it would translate to the big screen. Well, it absolutely blew my expectations out of the water. Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande in this are fantastic, and they give the film its heart. Everything in this film is presented in such grand fashion, from the musical numbers to just walking around various locations and just getting the audience really immersed in the land of Oz. The production design and costuming Oscars are definitely going to this, and I'm not going to complain, even though I would love to see Nosferatu get some love there. The relationship between Elphaba and Glinda just was so well developed. You can understand why Arrivo and Grande formed the bond that they did, when they're crying in all the interviews. I know that's memed all to hell, but, I understand that from this movie, and it's insane to me that Ariana Grande is going to lose to a performance from Amelia Perez, of all things, and it's energetic. It's a part one, but it doesn't feel incomplete. It gets you excited for what's coming next while also leaving you satisfied with what you've just seen. And it is far and away the best musical adaptation we've gotten in recent memory.
You don't have cash? Let's go to the ATM. You want to go to the ATM right now?
Spend too much.
Anora is a movie that you might watch for the first time, get 35 minutes in, and say, is this movie about anything else but two people fucking? Well, then that 40-minute mark hits, and the movie takes a huge shift. Mikey Madison gives a breakout performance here, and we clearly have not seen the last of her. Yura Borisov is very entertaining in this as well, and I definitely want to watch Sean Baker's filmography after this one. I need to watch the Florida Project and Red Rocket, as well as Tangerine. You have a movie here that just makes you laugh and laugh and laugh throughout this journey that Annie goes through trying to find Yvonne, while being joined by these three guys who are such different personalities that they complement each other so well. Then you get to the very end of it, and it finally hits you what this was all leading to, what it was all about. The first act is this fantasy, right? Two young people enjoying their time together, getting married, starting a new life. The Cinderella story. Then the second act is the disruption of that fantasy as he runs out on Annie, and she's forced into this chaotic situation that she had no preparation for whatsoever. Then the third act is the crushing realization that it was just a fantasy. It was all transactional. Whether you want to look at that from Yvonne or Annie's perspective, it's sad because she thought that she was starting a new chapter in her life, and it gets stolen from her as quickly as it was given to her, and that's what makes it a standout film amongst these nominees.
Well, I'd very much like to be equal to you.
Maybe I'll show you the way.
Perhaps the biggest Oscars fuck-up of the last decade has to be not nominating Denis Villeneuve for Dune Part 2. This movie has one of the most immaculate productions I've ever seen. Fantastic performances, breathtaking visuals, a great screenplay, awesome sound design, and the man that takes all those elements and brings it together doesn't get nominated. No, that's complete bullshit. I'm sorry. Anyways, for all the reasons I just said, Dune Part 2 is a phenomenal movie, and frankly, I think it's one of the best sci-fi epics that we've ever gotten. The characters are rich, the storytelling is deep, the cinematography is a pure spectacle. It has some of the most badass moments in cinema when it comes to 2024. It's got such a great feel to the entire movie where Part 1 was the setup, and you're like, okay, this is good, but it is all set up. Now, when you get to Part 2, you get this amazing payoff where the arc that Paul goes through is one to remember, that hero's journey that they kind of twist on its head. And it's just such a great way to pay off what was set up in that first part. And there's so many standout moments and performances in this that should have been recognized, like Austin Butler and Javier Bardem, and that Hans Zimmer score is majestic. Man, Dune Messiah cannot come fast enough.
I'm Sue.
Well, if you saw my video ranking every film I watched in 2024, you probably knew what was coming in at number 1, but come on, The Substance is one of my favorite horror films as of recency. And it's one of very limited amount of horror films to be nominated for Best Picture, so it's a part of cinematic history now. We also finally get a horror performance being celebrated in the form of Demi Moore, who gives one of the best performances of the year. Demi Moore, sorry. Margaret Qualley's performance complements Demi's performance so well, by the way, and she was robbed. Like, she deserved that nomination, but she'll be back. It's Margaret Qualley. The makeup is absolutely getting an Oscar. Coralie Fargeau will absolutely be getting my pick for director. She's not going to win, I don't think, but man, that's my pick. And I want her to get screenplay. I was happy to see her get screenplay at the Critics' Choice. And I absolutely believe that Demi Moore will be taking Best Actress home. It's getting a bit close between her and Mikey Madison, but I think Demi has got it. The substance is just grotesque. It's uncomfortable. It gets under your skin, and it makes you feel so many different emotions. You feel angry and sad that Elizabeth can't let go of her intrusive thoughts regarding her looks, and that she just can't be satisfied enough with how she looks in that scene where she's trying to go on the date and she keeps taking off the makeup over and over. Man, what a scene. Then you've got plenty of laugh out loud moments in there, whether it's Dennis Quaid running around or the insane third act. It'll just make you extremely squeamish thanks to the body horror of it all. And yeah, like I said, it's one of my favorite horror films as of late, and in a perfect world, it wins Best Picture for me. That's why it's my number one. So thank you guys so much for watching the ranking. I hope you guys enjoy the Oscar ceremony tonight. I will have the February movies that I watched ranked coming later on next week, and then I will have a Oscars recap where I go over everything that won and my reactions to everything that happened. It'll be fun. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye.